Still, I remembered well the place, and what the tomb had formerly been. How often have I listened to the good people calling me by my name. I heard their feet close to my den, but I was wicked enough still to be lost, though the time for meals was gone. Dreaming of days to come befell me every now and then as a child, and to be quite alone was my boyish heaven. Yet there was a seventh heaven above that. Let me but hear the foxhounds, and see the red coats of their pursuers, and I had seen the climax of delight. When the huntsman did come down by Stanbourne Woods, it was a season of delirious excitement to others besides the child. At other times, all the women and children were solemnly working at straw plait. But what they did when the fox went by, I will not venture upon guessing, for I don't remember what I did myself. The woods at the back of the chapel had a charming mystery about them to my little soul, for who could tell but a fox was there? As a child, when asked what I would be, I usually said I was going to be a huntsman. A fine profession, truly. Many young men have the same idea of being parsons as I had of being a huntsman. A mere childish notion that they would like the coat and the horn blowing, the honour, the respect, the ease. And they are probably even fools enough to think the riches of the ministry. Ignorant beings they must be, if they look for wealth in connection with the Baptist ministry. The fascination of the preacher's office is very great to weak minds, and hence I earnestly caution all young men not to mistake whim for inspiration, and a childish preference for a call of the Holy Spirit. I once learnt a lesson while thus fox hunting, which has been very useful to me as a preacher of the gospel. Ever since the day I was sent to shop with a basket and purchased a pound of tea, a quarter of a pound of mustard, and 3 pounds of rice, and on my way home saw a pack of hounds, and I felt it necessary to follow them over the hedge and ditch, as I always did when I was a boy, and found, when I reached home, that all the goods were amalgamated, tea, mustard, and rice, into one awful mess. I have understood the necessity of packing up my subjects in good stout parcels, bound round with the thread of my discourse, and this makes me keep to firstly, secondly, and thirdly, however unfashionable that method may now be. People will not drink mustardy tea, nor will they enjoy muddled up sermons, in which they cannot tell head from tail, because they have neither, but are like Mr. Bright's Skye Terrier, whose head and tail were both alike. Somehow, I don't think our Sunday school came to so very much. It was a great day when every child brought his own mug, and there was real cake and tea, or milk and water, and an address. But that high festival came but once a year. Having been on one occasion pressed into the service when I was still a boy, but was in Stanbourne on a visit, I felt myself a failure, and I fancied that some around me were not brilliant successes. Still, In those early years, teaching children to read and to repeat verses of hymns and to say the catechism by heart were a good beginning. Dr. Watts' catechism, which I learned myself, is so simple, so interesting, so suggestive, that a better condensation of scriptural knowledge will never be written. And the marvel is that such a little miracle of instruction should have been laid aside by teachers. While I am writing, one question and answer come to me with special freshness. Who is Isaiah? He was the prophet who spoke more of Jesus Christ than all the rest. At the distance of 53 years, I remember a little book which was read to me about a pious child at Colchester. I recollect Janeway's Token for Children, and I recall the bad conduct of some juveniles of my own age who not only kicked up a dust, but literally kicked the teachers. Memory makes a selection as she goes along, and in my case, the choice of things retained is so miscellaneous that I cannot discover my own character by their guidance. The weekday school for the very juveniles was kept by old Mrs. Burley, and to that fane of useful knowledge I was sent. The only thing that I remember was that I heard a good deal of her son Gabriel, and therefore asked, as a great favour, that when he came home from the town where he lived, he might come and see me. I had my desire, but after all these years, I have not got over my disappointment. To see Gabriel, I don't think I had absolutely reckoned upon the largest kind of wings. But wings, certainly, or something otherwise angelic. To see a young man, a youth in trousers, with no trace of cherubim or seraphim about him, was too much of a come down. What's in a name was a question not yet known to me, but no one will ever need to ask me now. Names are mere labels, and by no means proofs that the things are there. To come back to the old chapel, the best point about it was the blessing which rested on the ministry carried on within. The dew of the Spirit from on high never left the ministry. Wherever my grandfather went, souls were saved under his sermons. My own beloved father, Reverend John Spurgeon, constantly reports to me fresh instances of the old gentleman's usefulness. When I first of all became a preacher, there were persons who said, "I heard your grandfather," and I would run my shoes off my feet any day to hear a Spurgeon. This was encouraging. Another told me that to hear my grandfather once made his wing feathers grow a foot. He could mount as eagles after being fed with such heavenly food. He was always so experimental, was the summing up of one of the most devout of working men. You felt as if he had been inside of a man. Buildings may perish, and new shrines may succeed them, but no earthly house will accommodate a sounder or more useful ministry than that of my grandfather.